Thank you so much, sir, for speaking with the CSR Journal. If you could tell me your first reactions after the budget.
The budget is on expected lines. Primarily until yesterday, I've been discussing with people that the budget would focus on three areas. One is agriculture, second is infrastructure, and third one is SMEs. Because all these three sectors have the potential to create jobs, and job creation is what is on top of the government's agenda. And therefore, rightly so, the budget does focus or did focus on agriculture, on infrastructure, and on SMEs. For SMEs, of course, there is a tax relief, and for agriculture, there is a huge amount of outlays.
In terms of the taxes that were laid for corporates, can you tell me a holistic picture for CSR and how do you see the change coming about in this financial year?
Uh, Unfortunately, there has been no mention about the corporate taxation at all. Obviously, corporates do not have any relief as of now. Yet, those companies making profits will have to continue to allocate funds for CSR activities. My sense is that corporates would not mind or will have no reservation in continuing to perform their CSR activities and in continuing to support CSR activities. I'm very clear about two or three things. What this country needs primarily is food and nutrition security. This country needs skill development, and this country needs job creation. And therefore, if I would like more and more of CSR funds spent on nutrition security, on skill development, and on environment protection. If this three become the top three focus areas of corporates with CSR funds, I'll be happy to see that the funds are utilized in these three primary areas. I'm not saying others are less important. They are equally important. But if we have to identify three major problems for our country, it's obviously healthcare, education, and nutrition. And I think I would think increasingly more and more amounts should be earmarked by the corporates for advancing these three areas.
When you speak of education, the demographics is not only about the numbers, it's the quality of education that needs to come about. So when you consider NGOs who are working at the grassroots level, along with the emphasis that Mr. Jaitley made, what kind of changes are you expecting to see?
Primarily, we need to be spending more and more monies or investing in creation of primary schools and in running primary schools. We have excellent institutions for higher learning, for technical education, etc. But I think our primary education is in not exactly in a shambles, but certainly not in a very healthy state. Therefore, I would think NGOs with disposable CSR funds with them should focus increasingly on creating infrastructure for primary education.
What do you think with regard to the rural development announcements that he made and of course the Mahila banks to bring women to the forefront? Tell me about these two factors please for CSR.
Oh yes, I think the rural sector, quite next to agriculture, it is a rural sector which received a lot of attention of the finance minister in the budget. He did talk about the NAREGA, which is a rural employment guarantee scheme. There is higher allocation for rural employment guarantee scheme. He also talked about how these funds allocated for NAREGA are likely to transform into creation of rural assets. I think these are very, very positive statements. But what is important for our country is that we need to drought-proof our economy, particularly our rural economy.
Can you draw a link for me for the changes that he's made for the economy at large and how that trickles down to the last person who benefits socially from it? Besides the fact that so much of CSR money has been invested, what about the money from the government of CSR?
Extremely important, very, very important question. One of the big issues for this country is our belief in the trickle-down theory. I have personally lost faith in this trickle-down theory. It hardly trickles down. The benefits hardly trickle down. We need inclusive growth, which means uh, a very substantial part of the population, particularly the population that has been underprivileged so far, which would mean easily 60 to 70% of the population, must have their basic food and nutrition security, must have access to basic health care, must have access to basic education. If these three are not assured, and if these three are not delivered in time for the population, we will not have inclusive growth at all. Or when the government is unequal to the daunting challenge of this country, corporates must step in, and corporates should help policymakers discharge a part of their own responsibility. That is a policymaker's responsibility.
With regard to the upcoming elections that are happening, the BMC elections, what are your thoughts when the government has said that only 2,000 can be given in cash? That's a number he's reduced it to.
Well, I think we need electoral reforms. We need reforms in funding of elections and political parties. Therefore, this is the first step. Some of the political parties may be upset with all this, but I think we need to bite the bullet, and the government has bit the bullet. And therefore, I must actually appreciate that the government, the central government, has demonstrated a certain political will to address or to catch the bull by the horn, and they have done it. So I commend it.
Can you tell me very briefly what is CSR to you?
In my opinion, CSR to me is more is less of a duty. It's more of a privilege, more of doing something through which somebody draws pride, saying, I have done it, I have contributed to some very positive stuff. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for speaking with us. It's really glad for you to share your thoughts with us.